welcome to those online, whether you're watching us live or recorded at a later time. And it is a beautiful day. There's some cloud coverage here in San Diego. It's a little humid, but it's nice. And, across the country, there are heat waves going on. I was kind of gloating to a friend yesterday who's in Las Vegas for a basketball tournament. I sent him a screenshot of the weather, the weather report on my phone. He's like, "Ugh." But yeah, it is a beautiful day. And the title of the talk today is The Wise Warrior. And I immediately thought of Dan Millman's book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And that was one of the first spiritual books that I read. And I really liked it. I like getting spiritual messages from storytelling, and I just liked it. It was, the main character was an athlete, and so that sort of appealed to the masculine energy, and the setting was for the most part at a gas station late at night with a gas station attendant named Socrates, who just gave him pearls of wisdom. So there's going to be a bit of quoting from Way of the Peaceful Warrior today. And what I want to talk about is what it means to be a warrior. What does it mean to be wise? And how do we become wise warriors in our own lives? I've been a practitioner since 2008. And for about the first 10 years of my journey as a practitioner, I was really focused on working with women, working with mothers, and helping them to de-stress their lives, In the last 5 years, I've been working with felons in substance abuse treatment, and a lot of them are men, not all men, but many of them. The majority of my clients now are men, and so I've shifted from this very feminine energy into working with this masculine energy, and that's one of the things that I like about the book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, is it has that sort of masculine energy to it. And I've shared that book with a lot of men that I've worked with. And when I went to my bookshelf to pull out the book, I realized I must have gifted it to somebody because it is no longer there. But I was able to get some quotes anyways. And so I want to start by looking. I want to say I was when I was between jobs. At one point, I worked as a substitute teacher, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. And when I was a kid, one of my favorite games to play was school, and we would get out books, and I would always be the teacher. So as I put this talk together, I thought, this is very much like school. And I was remembering when I was probably in about fourth grade, so that's about 10 years old or something. We were working on sentence structure, and I was doing some homework, and it's subject, object, verb, noun, that kind of stuff, right? And I remember asking my dad for help with it, and he was leaning over my shoulder, and he's like, so what is the predicate nominative? Where's the predicate nominative here? And I was like, what's a predicate nominative, And I just have to say, I still don't know what a predicate nominative is. I've made it this far, but I am able to sort of deconstruct things. So that's what we're going to do. So I looked up the definition of a warrior, and is brave or experienced soldier or fighter. I thought, that's kind of a hokey picture. but I'm like, that's not exactly what I'm feeling in this talk. So, a person engaged or experienced in warfare, a soldier, a person who shows or has shown great vigor, courage, or aggressiveness, as in politics or athletics. I'm like, okay, it's getting a little closer, right? So I thought, what does it take to be a warrior? And I found this from Sitting Bull. He said, the warrior for us is one who sacrifices himself for the good of others. His task is to take care of the elderly, the defenseless, and those who cannot provide for themselves, and above all, the children, the future of humanity. So I love that, and I love that it's, a strong, powerful man and talking about taking care of the children, the future of humanity. So it's sort of that blend of the masculine and feminine there in my interpretation of it. And I was telling Victoria, we were talking before service this morning, and I was saying I picked up an extra shift yesterday. Actually, this week I was talking to a coworker, and we were, what are you doing this weekend? And I said, well, I'm doing this talk. And he said, oh, I bet you have it all planned out. Is everything all ready to go? And this was like midweek. I said, no. And my process is, I've known for a month or so that I was going to be here speaking today, and I'm speaking in place of Reverend Sherry. And so I just sort of like sat with the topic and just sort of marinate in it, for a while. And then the week before, I start jotting things down and taking notes. And, and then like Friday, I sit down and write the talk. And Saturday, I edit it and revise it and make sure the PowerPoint's done. And then here I am Sunday, right? In the office, making little notes 5 minutes before I come up here. So when my friend said, are you all ready? I was like, no, because I like to allow the space for spirit to move and inspire, right? Because if I wrote it last month and, had it in black and white and then just came up here and gave my talk, I feel like, that it's just not as organic, right? So yesterday I picked up an extra shift, and I was talking to my coworker, and she says, what are you doing this weekend? And I told her I was going to be speaking. She said, what's the topic? And I told her, and she's like, tell me about it. Tell me what you're going to talk about. So I started, telling her, and she said, I can't believe this. She said in 2016, she was diagnosed with cancer, and she had, I don't know, she wasn't going to go through treatments, she just, I don't know what stage it was, but she went back to South Carolina to see her kids and say goodbye, and she was just planning for her exit. And she said when she was back there, like laying in bed or sitting and looking out the window, thinking like, this is the world that I'm leaving, And she said she was inspired, that she said, God spoke to me and just said, you have to be a warrior. And she said, she just got the message that she had to fight with everything she had, that she ever had in her, and her grandson wasn't even born yet, and she fought. According to her, she went through chemo and the pain and the sickness and showed up to worked through it. And here she is. She's still here today. And she has this amazing little grandson, Gio, whom she adores, And just having that conversation with her reminded me of why I don't write my talk, weeks before, because I might not have had that conversation with her yesterday and just sort of been inspired and moved her and reminded her that she is a warrior and what she went through and where she is now. So then I wanted to get the definition of wisdom. Wisdom, having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. And to me, that implies some age, some time on this earth, because we're not really born with a lot of wisdom necessarily. I have 3 kids. They say your brain is not fully developed until you're 25. My oldest just turned 24, so I'm like, okay, we're almost there. We're almost there. But some of you may know my mom passed this month. I was thinking about it as I was sitting here. She passed on July 3rd, so it's been 20 days since she passed. And at her very Catholic funeral mass, the priest said, does anybody want to get up and talk about their mom or anybody in the family? And everybody says, nope, not me, not me. So I'm like, okay, I'm experiencing getting up and talking. So I got up and I talked about my mom. And one of the things that I remember about my mom is she was very wise. She was a very wise woman, and my parents didn't, when your parents pass, many of you have probably experienced this. My dad is still living, so this is the first parent that I've lost. You start talking to your siblings and talking to your family about memories and what it was like growing up. So I've been sort of in this process and discovering things from my brother and my sisters about my mom that I didn't know. But one thing that we all kind of agree on is our parents didn't talk a lot. They didn't teach us a lot of things, My mom said, I just trusted you kids, that I just trusted you. And let me tell you, I was out doing some things I shouldn't have been doing. I'm sure a lot of us can relate. But there were a few things that she did teach me. And one thing was that appearances matter. Even integrity, for integrity. I'm not talking about like looks, appearance. For integrity, even the appearance of impropriety. You know what I mean? Like perception is reality. So I've always remembered that for some reason and just kind of like tried to live myself mindful of how does this appear, because I want to live in integrity. And so I don't want things to appear, unintegrous, or I don't know if that's a word, but and when I decided to dye my hair pink when I was a teenager and did not get a very good reception, like at work. And she taught me that you can't please everybody all the time, right? And also, if you're going to put yourself out there like in a unique way and go against the grain, you need to know that not everybody's going to be comfortable with it, So you kind of have to thicken your skin a little bit and be brave and courageous, right? So let's put this together. I tried to get it to like come in one plus the other, but I couldn't. So this is our equation. This is school, right? I'm playing school. So if you take vigor, which is vitality and energy in life, right? And you add courage, you add experience, self-sacrifice, knowledge, and good judgment, you get the wise warrior, right? Does that make sense? And Joel Goldsmith is one of my favorite authors, and he didn't write too many books, but this is from A Parenthesis in Eternity. He said, love our neighbor as ourselves. Love our neighbor as ourselves, then, is giving our neighbor the same recognition of the godliness that we give ourselves, regardless of the appearance of the moment. That neighbor may be the woman taken in adultery or the thief on the cross. But we have nothing to do with that. What we have to do with is to love all our neighbors by knowing their true nature, just as we would be loved by having them know our true nature, in spite of what outward appearance may temporarily be evident. So I was thinking when I saw this quote, what's really important in order for us to love our neighbor is for us to love ourselves first, and to be able to see the truth of ourselves first before we can see the truth in our neighbor. And do we? Do you know the truth of yourself? Do you remember it throughout the moments and hours of your days between Sunday services? Right? Do you have a spiritual practice that reminds you? I have a prayer partner. I talk about my prayer partner all the time because he's just amazing. And he is so disciplined in his spiritual practice. And when I talk to him, on the phone, and he's telling me about this and that, and he did this sacred covenant this last few weeks working with some other practitioners, and I always feel like I don't measure up because I'm not that disciplined. And another practitioner friend of mine, because I'm very hard on myself. Is there anybody else in here who's hard on themselves? Yeah, right? Another practitioner friend of mine said, Mary, can you just love yourself through it? Can you give yourself a break? And can you give yourself the same love and compassion that you would give a friend who is being hard on themselves? Right? If you're being hard on yourself, I'm going to reach out and say, no, that's not the truth of who you are. Let me remind you, because I can see it. I can see it in you. But I don't always see it in myself. So, in order to truly love our neighbor as ourselves, if we want to love our neighbors in a positive way, we need to love ourselves in a positive way, right? And giving the neighbor the same recognition and kindness, regardless of the appearance, regardless of whether they have pink hair, right? Or in my case, regardless of whether they have tattoos all over their face and they have like FU tattooed on their eyelids. You know what I mean? Like these are my clients that I love, and I can see their pain. It's evident, right? So now we're getting into some peaceful warrior quotes. Dan Millman said, the secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. There is certainly value in looking at the old, exploring where we came from, what experiences in our lives have brought us to the point where we are now. What are our beliefs and where did they come from? But we don't want to dwell on that. That's not where we're going to stay. We're going to focus on what does serve me and what does not serve me. That which doesn't serve me, I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to focus on the new and creating the new. That's what we're all about. And Dan Millman, or actually it was Socrates, I believe, who said, a warrior doesn't seek pain, but if pain comes, he uses it. When I say Socrates, I mean the character Socrates in the book. He doesn't seek pain, but when it comes, he uses it. Pain is there to get our attention. And often when we start doing that work, that introspective work, and that work of looking at our life and our experiences, often there are painful experiences. Doesn't feel good. And I feel like a broken record because I talk about this all the time. You know, in our culture, we are taught that if something is painful, we want to avoid it. We want to take a pill for it. You know, we want to do something to forget about it so we don't have to experience that pain. But there is wisdom in that pain. I had an experience, I don't even remember what it was that was going on in my life, but I was really in a lot of emotional pain. And I remember sitting in my car. I was outside Barnes & Noble. I remember sitting in my car and just closing my eyes and allowing myself to move into the pain and asking the question, what is the gift here? What is the gift in this pain? Because there's always a gift. And it depends on our perception. We had an employee appreciation lunch this week. And, I don't eat meat. I eat fish, but I don't eat meat. And they had In-N-Out burgers. They had Costco pizza, and then they had salad and pasta salad and fruit salad and stuff. So, those of us, if you don't eat meat, you know that when you go to a potluck, it's kind of like, oh, here's some salad, here's some fruit, okay, I guess that's my lunch. And so I just, I'm used to it. I just, made my plate, took the pepperonis off the pizza and ate a piece of pizza, and I was sitting there with a coworker and we were chatting and somebody else came and sat down and, I said, hello. And she said, oh, I just can't believe this, I don't eat gluten and I don't eat, and there's nothing here for me to eat. And it's like, oh, wow, that sucks, And I said, well, there's salad and there's fruit salad. And then my coworker and I resumed our conversation and I guess this woman decided that we weren't the right audience for her or something. I don't know. She got up and she walked away and we both kind of looked at each other and we said, wow, she didn't even say hello, And it was a really nice luncheon. It was our supervisors pitched in and bought this food and recognized us. Each of the supervisors got up and bragged about their team and this and that. And it was a very nice event. But I don't think this woman really enjoyed it because she was focused on what was not there, And so I don't think that has anything to do with pain, but sometimes I digress. So focusing on the good, that's what it was. Focusing on the good, because there's always a gift in it. There's always a gift in the pain if we look for it and we ask, right? And Michael Beckwith, I love Michael Beckwith. He says, when we pray, we are not trying to make things happen. We're making God welcome. We're welcoming that divine presence. into our life when we pray in that moment. And then there, just like you drop a pebble in water and it ripples out, we pray in that moment, we allow God in, and then it ripples through our lives and through the moments and hours and days of our lives. And the more we do it, the bigger the ripples are, the bigger the vibration is. So when we make God welcome in our lives, we open ourselves and we allow the grace of the divine to move in. When my friend was saying goodbye to her family and she was contemplating leaving this world, the divine stepped in, in that moment of quiet that she had. And she decided to be a warrior. We don't tell God how big our problems are. What do? We tell our problems how big God is. So the invitation, there is an invitation. There's always homework when you go to class, right? The invitation, the homework for you this week is to look at what is standing in the way of you being a wise warrior in your life. Is it fear? Is it not practicing self-care? Is it false beliefs? Is it having a closed mind? Is it selfishness or immaturity? Just examine what is standing in the way of you being a wise warrior in your life. And whatever it is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So if it's fear, replace it with faith. If it's false belief, replace it with the truth and the true belief. If it's immaturity, grow up. If it's closed-mindedness, I'll tell you, my family had some conflict right before my mom passed. And we had all agreed at the beginning of the year, my mom was in the hospital, and she got out, and she was going to be discharged, and the doctor said he saw my dad, and my parents, lived together. They were married for 63 years. And the doctor saw my dad, and my dad is healthy, but he's 88, right? And the doctor said, I can't release her home to his care. She needs to go into like a facility. So we put her in like temporarily into a facility, and then she was getting such good care. She had dementia, and she would get up and wander around, and she couldn't wander off from the facility, and so we decided as a family to keep her there. And she went on hospice in January too. And about a month before my mom passed, my sister got it in her head that mom needed to be home with dad. And I had talked to my dad about, he said, we've made all the arrangements, right? They made all their funeral arrangements, bought their plot in the cemetery, all that stuff. But there's that in-between time when they really need more help than they were getting, and the ultimate transition date, right? It's that in-between time. I said, what were your plans? And he said, we just planned on, taking care of each other, staying home until we died, And I was like, oh, well, this is the hard part, buying a casket, that stuff, that's the easy part. But so my sister, because my Dad wanted that, she decided that Mom needed to be home. It was getting close to the end, and she came in, and I'll tell you, it was probably the most stressful month of my life. And the last week, she took her out of the memory care facility that she was in and had her sent to the hospital. And she essentially kidnapped my mom, right? So it was very, very stressful. And then I went, and I was being the warrior. I wanted to make sure that, my mom was being cared for and that she went back to the facility. But I called Reverend Suzette, and I talked to her, and I was telling her about it. I'm like, I can't believe my sister is doing this, and she was so comforting, because she said she's acting out of fear, and this, she doesn't know what to do. So she feels like if she does this, she's doing something and she's honoring your parents' wishes. And, so I was able to have a little bit of compassion for her. And when my mom passed, I realized she just, how sometimes you just get focused on something and it has to be this way, and you kind of lose sight of the bigger picture. And I think that's what happened, is she had fear, and she just zeroed in on this idea that Mom has to be home. She has to die at home, And I can appreciate that, and also know that Mom needed a lot more care than, we could have provided. She's in Vegas. I'm in San Diego. They're in Orange County. My brother's disabled. He can't drive over there. It's like there's just practical things that you have to consider. And, so I'm not trying to air my family's dirty laundry or anything, but just the thought of that closed-mindedness. Sometimes we get so fixated on something and how it has to be that we're not open to an alternate solution, an alternative solution. And, so it's been a process for me, a process in forgiveness and just showing love and compassion, and allowing God's grace to move in, and so again, the call to action is for you to look for what is standing in the way of you being a wise warrior in your life. And whatever it is, replace it with the greater truth of who you are. Recognize that in yourself. Give yourself compassion.
See peace instead of this. I could see peace instead of this. I could see peace instead of this. I could see peace instead. See peace instead of this. I could see peace instead of this. I could see peace instead of this. I could see peace instead of this. When I feel lost and I don't know where to go, it's always up to me. What I focus on will grow. And I could choose love, or I could choose fear. But if I want to be happy, the answer's so clear that I could see peace instead of this. I could see peace instead of this. Yeah. I could see peace instead of this. I could see peace instead of this. When I'm troubled, feeling so alone, love is always with me, and grace will bring me home. Love is the healer. Love is all I see each and every day. Love is who I wanna be. So I could see love instead of this. I could see love